Hi, I'm Everett Abrams, the Wizard of Wood, and today we're in the shop to talk about how to apply different stains and sealers and coatings on wood surfaces. So we're going to talk about the different methods and ways. The first one we're going to talk about is actually what not to do, and one of the more popular options, which is a roller. A lot of people like to use a roller because it's easy, they're familiar with it. If you're working on different surfaces like a deck, you could put on an extension pole, hard to reach places, and it makes it real easy, okay? That's the best part about using a roller for applying coatings on wood surfaces, because what happens is, and us that are familiar with using a roller, when you roll, you do a section, and you go once or twice, and you do a section, and then you go to the next section, you go once or twice, and then where you overlap your sections, you do this. So you're going back and forth in that line. So what happens is you'll put 5 or 6 coats there. Now, if you fast forward as your wood surface starts to wear and degrade, what happens is where you overlapped, you'll have a stripe, a dark stripe, because you put a heavier coat on in that area. So what happens is, as let's say your deck or your wood siding starts to wear, you'll see these stripes. Now what makes it even harder is when you go to maintain your coating in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is, what happens is if you try to clean and then reapply, the striping or those heavy areas will be further accentuated. So we need to either remove those by stripping or by sanding before we can apply the next coat. So roller's really not the optional method, it's the easier method for a lot of people. There's nothing to clean up and so forth. But for contractors especially, that's out the window. So we'll get that one out of the way. Next we'll talk about sprayers. And sprayers go from the pump-up sprayers to an intermediate, which is an Hvlp sprayer, which stands for high volume, low pressure, and then we have airless sprayers. Now, a lot of people use pump-up sprayers for various different reasons. One is price, easy to use, and the biggest one for a pump-up sprayer is, even no matter what sprayer you're using or what method, it's always good to have a pump-up sprayer as like a plan B or a backup if your other sprayer breaks down. But in regards to a pump-up sprayer, they come in cheaper versions or a little more expensive versions. Basically, you put your product in a container, you'll pump it up to apply the pressure, and then you'll apply with the wand. Now, with these, they do put out a large droplet in comparison to the other types of sprayers. So with that large droplet, it won't float easy in the wind or in the air on a windy day, and you can get this right up close to a surface. So that's one advantage to using a pump-up sprayer. It does take a little bit more time. You are pumping it up to continue the pressure. So productivity-wise, it's not as good as the other sprayers. But that's a very popular one in regards to sprayers. So that's your pump-up sprayer, one method. The next method would be your Hvlp sprayer, which is usually a small pump. It usually runs about 60 PSI. It puts out a medium mist, and basically you have your container that brings the product into the pump. It's pumped out through another hose on the other side of the pump, and you'll have a wand very similar to this, and you're easily to apply. There's no pumping. It's usually run with a 12-volt battery. So the 12-volt system, or Hvlp, high volume, low pressure systems, they'll put out a medium droplet. You do have to be a little careful on windy days because your product will float, but it won't be so much as an airless sprayer, which will be the next one we talk about. This is a very popular method and way for contractors, but I would say that the downfall of this is you could only use sealers, and I should have mentioned that with the pump-up sprayers. You can only really put sealers through those. A light-bodied stain, semi-transparent, you can put through these, but when we get to the more solid stains or more opaque finishes, both of these options are out the window. So for the pros and for a lot of contractors, painters, and so forth, the main option is an airless sprayer. And I don't have the sprayer here, but I brought the gun to show you. And basically you have your sprayer with a hose. You can run it through a generator or any electrical outlet. It works real easy, but it puts out a fine mist. And you'll see most of the pros using an airless sprayer. Now, if you're doing a deck or wood siding, one thing with any of the sprayers, but especially an airless sprayer, you want to make sure that you're perpendicular with the wood surface, because if you're on an angle, wherever you have a multi-surface, say, whether it be the lattice, whether it be even the deck floor, if you hit one side, if you look at it from the other side, you'll see a striping on the top lines of the floor, or the lattice, you'll see a mist spot. Unless you're perpendicular. So you do have to either use extension poles that they have with these, or you'll be moving around to be perpendicular. But this goes very fast, it's very productive. It will apply any type of sealer or stain, and this is what the pros use, is an airless sprayer. Also, with, just as a side note, a lot of the products now used for maintaining and stripping stains and sealers, solvent-based strippers, they can be applied with an airless sprayer as well. So there's a lot of new things coming out, and the industry's constantly changing. But airless sprayers are a big recommendation if you're going to spray. Now, moving over to the brush application, and a brush application is your top optimal method to apply a sealer or stain, because it's a heavier application. You're working it into the wood, and that's your optimal method. It is a little more time consuming, but we can break that time down if we do know what we're doing. In other words, if we're using stains and sealers, they make brushes for stains and sealers. You don't use a paintbrush that would leave brush marks also, but they do make brushes that are either China bristle or a combination of polyester and China bristle brushes, depending on your water-based or oil-based stains. So what happens is they're very soft, and you can always tell someone who's not used to using a stain brush versus a paintbrush, because paint, you're used to dipping in the paint and putting a lot of paint on a brush, whereas you don't have to with a stain brush, because it pulls in and holds a lot of the material, and you can really go a long ways with it. So what happens is, if you're not used to this, the person not used to it will have the stain or the sealer running down their arm, because they're not used to using these types of brushes. They hold a lot of product. They really put on a nice coat. They take, I mean, it really goes quickly with these. They also make them in smaller and larger brushes. They're also threaded. So for those people that don't want to get down on the deck, again, you can use your extension pole, put it on the brush, and you can use it that way. Also to reach hard to reach places and so forth. So that's your stain brush. So get the right stain brush for your project, and that will help out a lot. Now, regarding brushes, a lot of people think, well, sprayers are so much quicker. We want to use a sprayer. Brushes are optimal, but it takes a long time. Get out of the box thinking they're different type brushes. They make soft brushes. A lot of these brushes are used in washing a car or fleets, that kind of stuff. These brushes are soft bristle brushes. You could use those to apply sealers and stains as well. And what you do is you just put those on extension poles, and the same thing applies as what I showed earlier. And then they do make other types of, different companies will make, and you can find these in your paint stores, different types of brushes, same thing. They're wider. They, instead of using the roller, be just the same kind of method. You put it on the end of the extension pole. It's a soft bristle, and what you do is you just dip it in your stain or sealer, and you brush onto the floor. You do this on the wood siding as well. These are really good on if the surface is a little rough as well too. So there are different brushes out there that you can use to save time, that also put on a really nice coat. No matter what coat you're using, you should put on a two-coat application. I always call it wet on wet, so you don't really let the first coat dry before you put on a second coat normally. And then what happens is, or at least back brush your second coat. What that does is it will take care of your drip marks and so forth. So do a wet on wet application. You'll cover all the areas, and you should be good to go. Just going back with a brush too, even if you're using a sprayer, using a brush to back brush or to get your drip marks up and stuff is a must. So even if you're spraying, you should have one of these brushes as well with you for the drips and so forth. So in summary, just to go over rollers, it's a method, but not really a good method when it comes to how it wears moving forward, and then you have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to the reapplication. With stains and sealers, what we want to do is be able to go back and do a maintenance coat in a few years when it's time, and we want to just be able to do a light cleaning and a recoat. If we don't prep the surface correctly and apply it correctly, then we have to reinvent the wheel then, and that's what happens with the roller. In regards to the sprayers, we have a pump-up sprayer, which is a large droplet. It's good for sealers, not so much as good for the stains, or start getting more to the opaque stains. The 12-volt system, or Hvlp, high volume, low pressure, puts out a medium droplet. Be careful of the windy days, and that will work for sealers and the light-bodied stains, but again, not the solid stains. Then we go to the Airless Sprayer, which put out fine mist. Be really careful on a windy day. You probably don't want to stain on a windy day with the Airless Sprayer, but it'll put out a fine mist. Again, back brush both of these. This will put on your solid stains. Really, really, really good option. And that's, again, what the pros use is the Airless Sprayer. In regards to the brushes, there are different types of brushes out there. There's extension poles that you can use for the brushes for the hard to reach places, the high places. You have a China Bristle or a China Bristle combination with polyester that is excellent for staining and sealing. And that's pretty much it on your different methods to apply stains and sealers. I hope this video has helped you out a lot and brought a little bit, make you think a little bit about how you're going to do your next project. There are different ways and methods, but check it out before you do it. It will make your job a lot easier. So hopefully the Wizard of Wood brought you some information that will be helpful for you this time. Thank you for checking out these videos, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Check out the other videos, and for more information, check me out at the Wizard of Wood on Facebook.